Ladies, I'm using this channel mainly to communicate with the fellas, but you're always welcome here. And today I have a question specifically for you about the type of man that you find attractive. And my question comes out of a humor piece that showed up in the New Yorker a few weeks ago, titled 7 Signs That Your Man's Masculinity is Non-Toxic. It's a series of 7 cartoon panels that paints a caricature of the ideal man. And it's just a caricature, so we shouldn't take it too seriously, but it's clearly a recommendation from the New Yorker about the type of man that you should find attractive. For example, in the first panel, we have this cute little guy, and the caption reads, "He carries a tote bag that's at once pro-environment, pro-feminism, and pro-reading." That little guy is non-toxic, safe for women and children. I showed this panel to my wife, and I told her, this is what the New Yorker thinks you should find attractive. What do you think? And she laughed, and she said, "I think no one's having sex with that guy." So what I want to do here is break down a few of these panels, and I'm going to give you my opinion, and then I want to hear what you think. Let's look at panel number 4. In this scene, we have a man and a woman in an office setting, and she has her feet up on the desk, which indicates that she is in a higher position than him. And he, being a good feminist, is happy about this. He's giving her the old thumbs up. The caption reads, "He opens doors for women at work, but they're metaphorical doors, like the ones that lead to promotions." I showed this one to my wife too, and she read it a little differently than I did. She assumed that the man in the scene was the superior, and that he was creating advancement opportunities for the women who work for him, presumably at the cost of the men who work for him. I read it a little more literally. When someone on the street opens the door for someone else, you have 2 people starting on an equal footing. One person slows down and assumes the burden so that the other one can pass unimpeded. And that's the template that I put on this scene. I assumed that the man had been working hard and he had some sort of promotion coming to him, but he stepped aside and he allowed her to take the credit and the promotion. We all know that nothing in life is free, and that includes your principles and your values. And in fact, your values can be some of the most expensive things you ever invest in. Now, in this little hypothetical situation, we have a man who passed up a promotion so that his competitor could take the promotion. And this is the kind of guy that the New Yorker thinks that you should be interested in. So let's say, hypothetically, that you married a man who would make this kind of decision. And let's put some hypothetical numbers to this hypothetical situation and see what the actual cost might be. Let's say, just for the sake of discussion, that promotion cost him $10,000 a year every year going forward. And let's say that the 2 of you would have invested that money into a basic index fund where maybe you make an 8% return. So if you compound that out over 10 years, the cost would be $166,394. And compounded out over 20 years, that's just over $500,000. That was a very expensive act of chivalry. Now, I don't know how much it would actually cost, and I haven't taken into account capital gains taxes or inflation or that sort of thing, because what do I know about numbers? I'm just a silly shrink. But I do know this. It's been well established that men who are high in the trait agreeableness make significantly less money over the course of their careers than their less agreeable counterparts. So it's easy to imagine that this sort of chivalry would become very expensive over the course of a 20 or 30 or 40-year career. Now, maybe you make enough money in the couple that it doesn't matter if he makes this sort of sacrifice. Or maybe the 2 of you are so committed to your principles that you're willing to pay the price. And if so, then you're a principled person. Good. But I don't want you to go into this blind. I don't want you to just take the New Yorker's word for it that this non-toxic behavior is actually beneficial, because there's going to be a cost. And I don't want you to kick yourself down the road because you partnered with someone whose business plan is to put everyone else ahead of you and your home and your retirement and your children's college fund. Let's look at number 5. In this panel, we have some people being told jokes, and the caption reads, "He laughs calmly when called a cuck. He laughs loudly when women are funny, and he does not laugh when men are not." Okay, there's a lot going on there, so let's just focus on that first sentence. He laughs calmly when called a cuck. What does that even mean? Well, in nature, a cuckold is a male animal that has been duped into caring for the offspring of another male animal. In the vernacular, it just means what my father's generation would have called whipped. It means that you're being dominated or you're submitting to an overbearing woman. And in real life, outside of the internet, no man's going to walk up to another guy and say, dude, you're a cuck. It's going to be a subtler jab. It's going to be something along the lines of, hey, let's go have a beer if it's okay with your girlfriend. And that's an insult. And if you find it sexist that that's an insult, just reverse the pronouns and imagine that a woman approaches another woman and says, hey, let's go have a beer if it's okay with your husband. Women don't do that sort of thing, and men do it all the time. And I think it's a little confusing to women as to why we're constantly busting each other's chops. So why do we do this? Well, the answer is fairly simple. First of all, it's fun. It's sport. Keeps your mind sharp. Keeps you connected with other guys. And that really is the real issue. Trading barbs keeps men connected. And the man who can bust chops with the other men is the man who's going to have social connections. He's going to be trading favors. He's going to be well regarded, because when my buddy insults me and I insult him back, I'm sending a couple of messages. Number one, I'm saying, you're not going to get over on me that easy. But number two, and more importantly, much more importantly, I'm saying I'm a stand-up guy, quick-witted. I don't mind mixing it up. I'm the kind of guy that you want to have on your team. The guy who just laughs it off, who laughs calmly when called a cuck, he's going to make himself a bit of a social outcast. There's going to be a large cost to that. So what does this have to do with you? Well, let's say that it is the zombie apocalypse. What kind of man do you want in your corner? Do you want the guy who's connected to other men, who has a social network, who exchanges favors, and who has all kinds of resources at his disposal because of that, and who can help other men? Or do you want this lovable little fuzzball who laughs it off, but he's probably a bit of a social outcast? He doesn't have the same network, the same connection, the same options. And let's say, just for the sake of argument, that it's not the zombie apocalypse, but something much more mundane, like a medical scare or a tax audit. It's the same question. Which guy do you want in your corner? Something to think about. I have to interrupt myself with a sloppy voiceover because there's one more point to make here. I left it out when I was shooting because it seems so obvious, but in retrospect, it really does deserve a mention. There are, of course, insults that you can and should laugh off, but anyone who repeatedly shows the world that he's not willing to defend his boundaries is going to get his boundaries violated by people and bureaucracies and the world in general. And if you're not willing to defend the small boundaries, it gets progressively harder to defend the larger boundaries. That's a really dangerous way to go through life, and in spite of what the New Yorker says, that kind of submissiveness might not be the first quality you want to search for in a man. Okay, back to the show. Let's back it up and look at number 3. And here we have a rather soft-looking fellow with a beard, and he is weeping as he's watching what appears to be The Incredibles. And the caption reads, "He openly cries during Pixar movies. Even the parts that aren't sad, just beautiful." I have never felt compelled to cry at a Pixar movie, but I have my moments. You remember in The Godfather, where Michael Corleone was hiding out in Italy, and he took a mistress, the lovely and naive Apollonia. And Apollonia was accidentally assassinated. It should have been Michael. It was so wrong, and she was just caught up in a web of evil men. And it gets me right here every time. But I choke it back like a man. And I'll tell you why. It's not because I don't have emotions. I'm a psychologist. I know that they're there. But I also have male wiring. And there are many times where male wiring, the type of stoicism that the New Yorker seems to regard as toxic, is actually pretty useful. I'll give you an example, 2 examples, one at home and one out in the world. At home, one of the things that men offer to their children is lessons about emotional control. And these are important lessons, and they're lessons that very few women can give naturally. It sort of comes naturally to men. Other things come naturally to women. And if I could take a little digression, one of the theories about why the Neanderthals went extinct is that they didn't make gender distinctions for jobs. And so you had men and women doing all the same stuff. Everybody was hunting, everybody was raising the children, everybody was doing everything. But then humans came along and we divided tasks along gender lines. So fathers did some of the work and mothers did some of the work. And this created a tremendous advantage for human infants. So jumping forward a few years, one of the things that fathers give to children is an ability to switch gears emotionally. I'll give you an example. One of the things that fathers do frequently that really vexes women is we will get the kids all riled up before bedtime. Lots of horseplay, lots of laughter. Sometimes there's tears because someone gets hurt. It's a very high energy level. And then we will say, okay, done. Time for bed. Let's get ready. And mothers have said to me, why do you do this? Why do you get the kids all riled up before bed? And the answer is that we're teaching them how to switch gears. And it's a very important skill in life. Here's another example of where male stoicism is a lifesaver. Historically, and even today, we do the dangerous stuff. We're the ones who go to war, for the most part. It's changing a little bit, but still, high 90%. We're the ones who go to war, do the dangerous jobs in the coal mines and dangling from high power lines. And it's very important in these situations that we don't allow emotion to rule the day because it can get people hurt. And so there's a couple examples of where male stoicism isn't toxic. It's actually very useful, sometimes a lifesaver. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Which kind of guy do you want in your life? The kind of guy who can be composed and pull it together in an emergency? The kind of guy who's going to give your children the lessons that they need to learn from men? Or the kind of guy who falls apart when he's watching Pixar? And I'm not saying there's no middle ground. I certainly know guys who are very composed and they can shed a tear during a Pixar movie. And that's a nice middle ground. But if you've got to choose between the two extremes, because sometimes you can't have both, which guy do you want in your corner? All right, you probably have a sense of where I stand on this. Now I want to know what you think. I will leave a link to the New Yorker article in the description below, and I hope you'll leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this caricature of the ideal man that the New Yorker has painted. Do you find it attractive? And by attractive, I don't just mean comforting. I'm sure there's something comforting about the idea of a man who will never really give you any trouble and he'll just watch whatever you want to watch on Netflix. But do you find that arousing and alluring? Is that the kind of man that you can really look up to and admire? Let me know. All right, ladies, I hope you'll stick around on the channel. Men, we'll be back to the normal patriarchal programming next time. And check out the Tactical Guide to Women if you haven't already. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, baby.